from the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities. Today we're here at the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities, and the museum actually, it was inaugurated in 1901. The idea of the museum was actually by the French Egyptologist Auguste Mariette, who was also the first director of the Egyptian Museum. This is the first museum or building to be built as a museum. Before that, the ancient Egyptian collections and the antiquity collections in general were housed in palaces like the palace in Bulaq and others. Now, this museum is unique. It comprises two main floors. The first floor is arranged according to the eras chronologically. The second floor is arranged according to items. The second floor, of course, houses the mummy room as well as the treasures of King Tutankhamun. The museum houses more than 160,000 masterpieces, in addition to thousands of masterpieces in the storerooms. Today I'm happy to have with me the General Director of two museums, the Egyptian Museum of Antiquity as well as the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, Dr. Khaled Anany. Dr. Khaled also was awarded the title of Chevalier in the field of archaeological research, and that's the highest merit and award in that field to be given from France. Dr. Khaled, welcome with us.
Welcome, it's my pleasure to host you in Cairo Museum.
Dr. Khaled, thank you very much for being with us on my cruise today. If we can start by a historical look on the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities. As Rasha said, it was inaugurated in 1901, that's about 115 years ago. So how did it evolve till now?
As Rasha has just said now, the building was achieved in 1901, and it was opened the year after in 1902. And we celebrated last November, the 15th of November, the 113th anniversary of the building. And as Rasha said also, it was the first building built intentionally to serve as a museum, because the previous ones were either palaces or industrial area like in Bulaq. The first exhibition took place in Al-Azbakiyya. The second one was behind the citadel. The third one was in Bulaq. And the fourth one was in the palace of Ismail Pasha in the pyramid area. And the fifth one is Cairo Museum. The plan was established by a French architect called Marcel Dornian, and it was opened the 15th of November 1902. The museum houses more than 160,000 objects. The objects are displayed in many areas. You have the garden for big stones, and the exhibition is on two floors. The first one is in a chronological order, starting from the prehistory till the late period and the Greek-Roman era. And the first floor are collections or objects discovered in one place, like Tutankhamun or Tanis or the animals. And you have the basement, which contains more than 100,000 objects stored, non-displayed for visitors. And we have also another storage area in the third floor, in the parts of the western part of the third floor. It's one of the biggest museums all over the world, and it's the biggest pharaonic collection all over the world. And the building itself now is an antiquity. It is registered now in the Islamic department in the Ministry of Antiquities, because the building now is 113 years old.
Yes.
Well, Doctor, before we start talking about the museum itself, I'd like first to ask you about some of the latest initiatives and visits. Recently, the Chinese Archaeological Institute, the director of the Chinese Archaeological Institute, Dr. Wang Wei, he visited the museum actually, and you met with him. So would you brief us on the result of such a meeting?
He came to the museum with the high officials from China, from Shanghai, and 2 weeks before I had also another visit from the director of Shanghai National Museum. So as we are establishing now a very strong relation with China, so I had received these two delegations to study how we can cooperate and collaborate together. And the director of the Archaeological Authority in China promised to study this as he returned to China, to start the first excavations together, and also in the museology field. It was a very fruitful meeting.
Yes, what about the main challenges that the museum that the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities had faced, especially after the 25th of January revolution in 2011 on the security level.
And the museum is situated in the place of the events in Tahrir Square. Of course, it suffered a lot, and it became a military area and a police area for 4 years. Now, after that, the situation is much more calm. We are receiving now about 2,000 tourists per day, visitors, including Egyptians. And we hope that with the stability of Egypt, we'll have more tourists. We have some challenges now, technical challenge in the museum. First of them, I have a problem. We had a serious problem for the cleaning of the museum. The museum was very dusty, especially with the work that we have in the National Democratic Party just near the museum.
Yes.
This is the first challenge, and now we recruited in December, so the museum is much cleaner than before. My second challenge is for the lighting. It's very dark, as you see.
Yes.
So we are going to change all the lighting of the museum within 2 months maximum.
Yes.
The third challenge for me is the labels. We have less than 10% only of the antiquities displayed with labels, and we started a new policy in the museum that each curator will write 3 labels per week in Arabic and English, and now we are revising them, and they will appear by end of February, inshallah.
Yes.
These are, for me, the 3 major challenges we are facing.
Yes.
What about the showcasing? Would they still remain the same old wooden ones, or you're planning to change?
They should remain the same. Now we are building in Egypt 2 very modern museums. The GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum, and the NEMEC, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. Both will be reach of multimedia and modern museums. This one should remain an authentic museum with the same showcases, cleaner, painted, but the same showcases. We have to keep the same atmosphere of 1902. As for the collection, we have, as you said, 160,000 objects inside the museum, 60,000 in display, and 1,000 in the storage area, in the basement and the 3rd floor. Big part of this collection will go to the Grand Egyptian Museum and to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, and will keep in Cairo Museum its masterpieces and all objects related to the history of art. And we had a meeting last Tuesday with His Excellency Professor Damati, Minister of Antiquities, with the scientific committee, which are now distributing for the first time the collections on the 3 museums. So this museum will not die because it's one of the most famous over the world.
What about the treasures of King Tutankhamun? Would they be transported, or some of them will remain
All
here?
the collection of Tutankhamun will go to the Grand Egyptian Museum. All the royal mummies will go to NEMEC. All the masterpieces will remain in Cairo Museum.
Yes, Dr. Khaled, you also said that about 2,000 visitors visited visit the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities daily. So what are the plans of the museum to be increasing that number in the coming years?
We are trying to do some awareness for the community. We made some cultural activities in the evening. We received an evening with UNESCO. We celebrated the 113th anniversary in the garden. We are receiving high authorities and high officials and visitors from all over the world. We received the composer Anany during his visit to Egypt, some actors, the president of the Russian parliament was here 2 days ago. We are working on the infrastructure of the museum, on the lighting, on the labels, on the building.
But would it be harder to be maintaining the same number of visitors, about 2,000 visitors a day, after the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum and other museums in Cairo and Greater Cairo?
I hope that Egypt will have more than 2,000 visitors per day. The 3 museums will complete each other's. That's why now we have a scientific committee gathering the 3 directors of the 3 museums with the 2 university professors and the minister himself to study how the 3 museums with the 3 concepts should continue each other. And our policy now that the Grand Egyptian Museum will deal mainly with kingship and divinities, the National Museum with the social life, agriculture, writing, the Nile, the dawn of civilization, the mummies, and this one it will be for the history of art. So we'll oblige each tourist to go to each one of the museum, because there is something missing. He has to continue to go to the three museums.
Yes.
Well, Doctor, recently Professor Dr. Mamdouh Damati, the Minister of Antiquities, has inaugurated a temporary exhibition. It's about the repatriated objects brought from various countries back to Egypt. Would you brief us about that temporary exhibition?
10 days ago, it was the 14th of January, it was the 10th anniversary of the archaeologist. We opened, His Excellency opened the temporary exhibition, Repatriated Objects, during 2014-2015. During the last 18 months, the ministry, with the repatriation department in the ministry, was able to repatriate more than 500 objects. We displayed 198 of them, coming from 8 countries. Many ambassadors came. It was the media was present. It was a very nice celebration. It has two main reasons: to show the efforts done by the ministry to protect its heritage, especially in the Middle East area that we are suffering a lot with the cultural heritage in this area, like in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Libya. And in the same time, to encourage other countries to do the same initiative and to give us some objects that are stolen in their countries.
Yes. Now, Doctor, how can we benefit from the international cooperation in the field of museology?
The museology is a field which unfortunately is absent in our Egyptian universities. It's very strange that we don't have an heritage management study programs, neither museology program in our Egyptian university, and it's very strange. We started only recently to have master programs, and I hope that very soon we will have also museology and heritage management museology university programs in Egypt. This is very important, and we are working now. I'm a professor at Helwan University. Helwan University established 2 years ago 2 master programs with Germany in heritage management and museology, and their students will be the pioneers in Egypt in these 2 fields.
Dr. Khaled, Rasha also spoke about the repatriation of a number of artifacts. About 226 artifacts are currently here in the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities. What about Denmark as a country? How did it help us in retrieving and repatriating some artifacts?
The repatriation of this more than 500 objects, we are displaying only 200 of them, but we repatriated more than 500 objects during